Chapter 16, Eight of Swords. A ghost-themed Halloween party does sound amusing, said Kain, smiling thinly. You just got out of the hospital. We're not having a party, said Grandma Esther. You're going to rest and you're going to recuperate. Yes, Grandma, said Kain, nodding like a good little boy. All right, we can have a little get-together. With only close friends, and no drinking and no candy. Your stomach is still far too sensitive to handle irritants, said Esther. Perfect, thank you, Grandma, said Kain, smiling warmly. I want to invite Carina, Eugenia, Dad, Malik, he's fun, and Alexia if he's not too busy with his new boyfriend. Alexia has a boyfriend, Good for him, said Esther, sighing with relief. She didn't like that Kain was a little too friendly with Alexia. The two began to gossip about Alexia's new boyfriend, and Santiago tested Eugenia that his mission was accomplished. He had been forgiven for his sins, or so he led her to believe. Santiago lingered in Kain's house for as long as he was able to. He dreaded having to face his mother's rebukes. Kain settled down after washing the dishes, and when his father Jack returned home, he immediately got started with the preparations for the Halloween party. While the world moved around him, Kain was sulking while lying down on the couch, and he wasn't in the mood to do anything. He had used all of his spoons on Santiago, and he had suspected that Santiago was an energy vampire. All the times he had ever dealt with a man, Kain had left those encounters with his battery completely drained. He stared at the roof while he pondered all of his life choices, and he missed his own life, and up until recently his entire life revolved around Carina. She would fall in love with the loser would break her heart, and then Kain would be there to pick up the broken pieces. It wasn't the ideal relationship, but it was better than nothing. Even when she was with another guy, she was always paying him more attention. Before Bruno came into the picture, Carina was finally going to settle for Kain. I should have accepted her marriage proposal, said Kain, sighing sadly. Did Eugenia ask you for marriage? Asked Jack, choking them up he was holding. No, Carina was the one who asked me for marriage, explained Kain. Isn't she with Bruno? Asked Jack. Polygamy is illegal in this state. Are you really going to play second fiddle to another man? You deserve better, Kain. You deserve better. We all deserve better, Dad, but in life we have to be happy with what we got, because there are many people in the world who don't have anything to be thankful for, said Kain, regurgitating a piece of wisdom he had gotten from his grandpa many years ago. Oh, that sounds good on paper, Kain, but most of my dad's sayings are designed to keep you from taking risks, said Jack. Why didn't you accept her marriage proposal? I had no guarantee that she would leave me immediately, protested Kain, and it's not as if I rejected her completely. I told her that I would marry her if she committed to me for one entire year, and she couldn't wait for one whole entire day before jumping into the arms of another. If it makes you feel better, I don't think Bruno's in love with Carina, said Jack, sitting down to pet Kain's hair for a little bit. How can you be so certain? Asked Kain. Call it a hunch, or maybe an educated guess, said Jack. The only true emotions that I have seen Bruno express is bitterness and anger. He was bullied by everyone because he was fat, and Kansans like that, said Kain. And you more than anyone knows what it is to be bullied because of your looks. Close to sunset, a small group of friends and relatives assembled at Kain's house. Eugenia was the first person to arrive, and she came dressed like the Princess Jasmine. Behind her was her Santiago dressed like Aladdin, and like the fictional Aladdin, Santiago was willing to lie to get his princess. And seeing the two of them together made Kain realize that it was only a matter of time before Eugenia would dump him. His own mother didn't love him, and he felt lucky to have found a woman that had put up with him for so long. Eugenia's predecessors were all women he had been introduced to by friends or family, and whenever Carina found herself a new boyfriend, Kain's well-wishers took that opportunity to find him a proper mate. And Kain had never taken the initiative to look for someone he liked, and when his girlfriend dumped him as part of a power play, he never bothered to crawl back. Eugenia was the first girlfriend he had tried to maintain. She was the first woman he had ever completely opened himself to, and she had seen the sadness inside of him, and instead of running away from it or pretending that it didn't exist, Eugenia had consoled him. Kain felt that he couldn't compete with Santiago. He was Eugenia's childhood friend and a yes man. He was also the man that Eugenia preferred to sleep with, and there were certain nights when Eugenia's hair stunk of Santiago's cheap cologne, and Kain was so attention-starved that he never confronted Eugenia on this matter. She had never agreed to have a serious relationship if she wanted to keep things casual, so Kain either put it up with it or he waited for Eugenia's replacement to manifest herself. Eugenia hugged Kain and she gave him a sisterly kiss on the cheek. Eugenia stood back to admire Kain's Halloween costume. He had gone for an Egyptian mummy theme, since his head was still bandaged up. "Great mummy costume, Kain," said Eugenia, smiling warmly. "I'm not just any mummy. I am the High Priest Imhotep," said Kain, hugging Eugenia, "and you can be my Anaxunamun." "I wish you would have told me of your costume idea before I got this bargain bin jasmine outfit," said Eugenia, looking at her costume. "We can add a bit of toilet paper to your costume, and then you can be my queen," suggested the king. "Once everyone arrives, we're going to trick-or-treating." "We aren't children, Kain," started saying Santiago when Eugenia elbowed him on the ribs. "So instead," he said, "trick-or-treat, that's a great idea. I love trick-or-treating, and we should bring ends to vandalize the houses that don't give us candy. Or we can continue on our way instead of engaging in petty vandalism. Unlike you, I actually like my neighbors, and they like me. I don't want to shatter the goodwill I have built over time," said King. "And as for trick-or-treating thing, it isn't my idea of fun. It is just that my nephews are coming to the party, so we have to amuse them. I have a map of the houses that give out candy, so it is not as if we're going to be spending a lot of time outdoors." "Don't you think it might be dangerous to go out, considering that you got kidnapped by drug dealers?" asked Eugenia. "Most of my neighbors are ex-veterans, and a few even served with my father. If any outsiders tries to stir up trouble, they are going to rue the day that they were born," said Jack, coming out of the kitchen, and he was wearing one of his father's army uniforms as his Halloween costume. This one in particular was laden with bullet holes and was burned in certain spots. Raphael had preferred this tarnished uniform to remind himself never to take stupid risks. Stacy arrived with her children, and her husband Ken wasn't attending the party because he was working overtime. "It is important for the Kshatriyas to protect one another," said Kyle, Kain's nephew. The boy was dressed like Terry, one of the many incarnations of Batman, and his twin sisters were dressed like Harley Quinns. Anna was armed with a mannequin hand, while Hannah was lugging about a giant foam mallet. Arriving at the same time was Rosanna with her daughter Ariel and her son Malik and Balthazar. Balthazar was no longer living in Rosanna's house, and he had moved out in order to give the poor woman some peace of mind. Since she had a young daughter, she was naturally paranoid of every unfamiliar masculine face lurking around. While Balthazar was figuring out his life, he was renting Bruno's small apartment. Malik would visit him daily to make certain he was all right. He had a weakness for little birds with broken wings. And Elliot was a Nekomimi maid, and Malik was a cat burglar, and Rosanna was a sexy kitten, and Balthazar was dressed like the Puss in Boots. "And what the hell is a Kshatriya?" asked Eugenia. "They are the warrior cats from India," explained Jack. "And my father had a fascination with Hindu culture, and he went to India in search of enlightenment. And he found the Bhagavad Gita and the poem helped him find peace he so desperately needed. And he returned at home a changed man, and no longer was he bemoaning the death of his comrades or the lives he took in the name of freedom." Raphael came back even more psychotic than he was before, thought Stacy. Stacy had always been afraid of her in-laws, and when Raphael passed away, Stacy breathed in a sigh of relief. She no longer needed to live in fear of a man who had gone to India in search of enlightenment and had come back without a consciousness. "Enough philosophizing, Uncle Jack," said Anna. "Let's go trick-or-treating already before it gets any darker," protested Hannah. "I guess since everyone's here, we might as well get going," said Jack. "Alexia and Siddhartha are running late," said King. The two had RSVP the group text he had sent. "Just because they answer your test doesn't mean that they're coming," reasoned Jack. "Maybe something unexpected turned out," thought King. At that moment, Alexia sent a text apologizing for not being able to attend Kane's Halloween party. Alexia had a scene with his new boyfriend, so he couldn't come. Siddhartha rolled around in the corner with his chopper, and sitting behind him was his girlfriend Dorothy, and riding along in the sidecar was Jeremy. Jeremy was dropped off at Kane's house before Siddhartha rode away with his girlfriend. The lovers had better places to be. Siddhartha said that you invited me to a Halloween party, said Jeremy meekly. Yes, we certainly did, said Kane, greeting his guest. Jeremy sighed with frustration. He could always tell when people were lying to him, and he knew that those around him only tolerated his presence because Siddhartha was their friend. Jeremy was dressed like an Egyptian pharaoh. Are you also Imhotep? Asked Eugenia, giggling. I am the time-traveling pharaoh Horsenak, and I became king at a young age, but since that spelled too many responsibilities, I took my wealth and I traveled to the future, and when I ran out of money, I resorted to stealing to get by, and whenever they caught me, I escaped to the one place my pursuers couldn't find me, the future, said Jeremy, giving the backstory of his character. That's cute, said Eugenia, patting Jeremy's head. She always did that whenever she was addressing small children, and as she was removing her hand, she couldn't help but know that Jeremy was sporting a very familiar-looking earrings. As if almost reading her mind, Jeremy said, Your mother gave them to me because she said that they look good on me. If you doubt me, you can just ask her. It is all right, I believe you, said light Eugenia, patting Jeremy's shoulder. And it's like to test the integrity of all her new employees, and she had left a pair of expensive earrings by the pool area to see what Jeremy would do. Jeremy tied on the earrings, and he took a selfie with them before returning the earrings to their rightful owner. Eugenia looked at the other piece of expensive jewelry in Jeremy's person. The golden bangle was genuine, as well as all of the other jewelry props of his costume. Eugenia almost fancied that Jeremy had robbed an ancient Egyptian exhibit. Jeremy moved away from Eugenia's line of sight. With him out of sight, Eugenia hyper-focused on Kane. Kane smiled shyly, and there was another knocking on the door. It was Farley, dropping off his son Oswald. Oswald was dressed like the Red Magus, with a stick to serve as a magic staff. And Oswald's costume was originally more elaborate, but his father didn't allow him to buy a silver wig or to paint his skin yellow. Farley left as soon as he dropped off his son, and he too was working overtime, and with everyone assembled, they went out trick-or-treating. Thanks to Kane's math, their bags quickly filled with goodies, and while the children played, the adults talked. A lot of houses here celebrate Halloween, commented Eugenia. This is part of the reason why I bought my house here, said Kane while holding her hand. I have a lot of good memories of Halloween, and my grandpa was always the one who took me out to get candy. That's nice. My mother, that is my real mother, was the one who went out trick-or-treating with me in Santiago. It was always hard for us to find a house that gave me candy, and my neighbors only give away things that they can discount from their taxes, explained Eugenia. So, like, what she's saying is that, like, the trick-or-treating in rich neighborhoods doesn't give you much candy. The only place that gave us candy were the houses to belonging to Pamela's friends, explained Santiago. After she died, they stopped visiting. I can't see a blame, said Eugenia. Pamela is the name of Eugenia's dead mother. I can't say that I blamed, said Eugenia. I too had left, but I was financially dependent on my father, who was drinking himself to death. I get my addictive personality from him. He must have really loved your mother, commented Carina, who was eavesdropping. If he loved my mother, he never showed it, said Eugenia. And I never saw the two share a kiss, and they rarely occupied the same room. And during social gatherings, my father was in one corner of the room and my mother the other. Their marriage was already falling apart by the time I was born. My mother told me that Pamela used to humiliate your father every chance she got, and she was always treating him like a trophy husband, and he only tolerated because he didn't have a copper to his name, said Santiago, reopening old wounds. Women are always trash talk one another, remarked Eugenia, who only believed what she saw with her own eyes. And if my father was indeed just a trophy husband, my mom would have never trusted him to manage her finances. No marriage is perfect, remarked Jack. And my mother may mourn my father, but there were the years when the two spent their time practically at each other's throat. What was the thing that the two used to argue about? Asked Eugenia. The best way of raising Kain, said Jack, and when Kain was taken by the social service, it became a major stain in our family's reputation. and my parents couldn't go anywhere without having someone pointing and whispering, and the youngest son was in rehab, and the grandson had been taken away by social service, and when we got our baby back, we all started raising him by committee, and everyone had an opinion on how to best screw up the boy. Why did I spend an entire year with social service? Asked Kain. There was a family that wanted to adopt you, and your mother wanted full custody, and she claimed that I was the one responsible for your injuries, but I was in Las Vegas playing music, protested Jack, and when the lights stopped working, she claimed that a cat burglar had beaten you up, and she continued to lie about what happened till the day she died. So who was the family that wanted to adopt me? Asked Kain. I don't know. My father was the one who was taking care of that problem, said Jack. And we could just ask our family lawyer, suggested Carina. He died. You could just ask your family lawyer, suggested Carina. He died of old age, said Jack. If you give me the names and the dates, I could look to the court records, said Bruno. And then Kain said, don't bother. And what was your foster home like, Kain? Asked Eugenia. It was dusty. That is what I remember most about it. And my nana just gave me the basic maintenance. I got 3 meals and a shower, and in the afternoon I was allowed to go to the park with my grandma for a supervised play date. And at night we would watch Wheel of Fortune, and then I was sent to bed. And there were 2 other kids with me, and they didn't bother me, and I didn't bother them. Jeremy, what was your foster home like? It had a roof and 4 walls. That is the only good thing I had to say about that place, said Jeremy dryly. Why didn't you bring your cat? Asked Oswald. Sedanta didn't allow me to take T-ball, sighed Jeremy. He wanted me to learn to socialize without using my cat as a crutch. Is Sedanta like your older brother? Asked Ariel, coming over to talk to Jeremy. And since Jeremy looked so young, Ariel thought he was a teenager. I don't know what we are anymore, protested Jeremy. Sedanta and I have the same last name, but we are not brothers. Brown is a pretty common last name. If you think your last name is common, mine is as common as you can get. My last name is Smith, said Abby, smiling shyly. And how old are you, Jeremy? I don't know. When they found me, they thought I was 8, and since I didn't know my name or where I came from, they named me Jeremy Brown. Oh, so you have amnesia, said Abby thoughtfully. What is it like having amnesia? Do you know what year it is? Amnesia doesn't stop a person from making new memories, said Carina, jumping into the conversation. It just keeps you from remembering what came before. Jeremy's amnesia became a new focal point of the conversation, and Kain thought that Jeremy was pretty lucky to have forgotten all of his painful memories. And there was nothing that Kain wished more in the world than to forget about his mother, Bella. And while everyone was having fun, Kain was thinking about his mother. The Court of Children and Family in Florida was tragically known as the asylum. The morale of workers was low since they had to enforce an unjust law that rarely took into consideration children's rights. The law worked under the assumption that children were fools that didn't know what was best for them. It also assumed that they were liars or easily manipulated. Children didn't have the right to vote and were seen as financial burdens by the state. And it isn't surprising that children's wants and needs are irrelevant to lawmakers. Little Kain was thinking of this while looking at the statue of the Goddess of Justice. Not only was she blind, she might as well be deaf too. He had been summoned to the court in order to hear the grim news. His mother had won visitation rights. Kain was reading and rereading his cue cards, listing other reasons why he didn't want to see his mother. And he came before the judge with his grandpa, the family lawyer, and his minor's counsel. The judge informed him that Bella had earned visitation rights, and at first she was going to be with a social worker, and depending on since when, she was going to have the right to unsupervised play dates. The boy has a statement he would like to read, said Kain's counsel. Bella's lawyer began to argue against it, and Judge Farouk said, I will allow it, though I must warn you, child, that whatever you say is going on record, and it is not going to change your fate. The law has spoken, and your mother has earned the right to see you again. I got my rights too, protested Kain, and I have a right to pursue. Kain looked at his cue cards. My happiness. Seeing my mother is going to make me unhappy, and child beaters should be governed by the same laws as child molesters, And physical abuse is no different than sexual abuse, so why isn't it punished the same way? And my mother is a two-faced monster, and if you leave us alone, the torture will resume. Farouk's brow furrowed, and he felt powerless to give Kain the justice he desired. And since Farouk wasn't saying anything, Kain tried a religious angle to his well-rehearsed tantrum. And Kain ranted for hours and hours, and Farouk wanted to give the boy the chance to tell his mother everything he wanted. And Kain never spoke to his mother directly, nor did he make eye contact. "That's enough," Kain said Grandpa Raphael. It was sunset and everyone wanted to go home, and Kain's throat was so dry that all his sentences were barely intelligible. Kain sat down and he put on his headset to listen to Code of Personality at full volume. Since reasoning with his mother and the judge hadn't worked, Kain was going to try his plan B. The day finally came for Kain to be taken by his mother, and as soon as he saw her, he suffered a major tantrum. And during the court hearing, Kain had given Bella the impression that he had matured, and she hadn't expected the boy to start acting like a toddler. And despite all of his kicking, punching, and crying, Bella got Kain inside the car and she drove away. And sitting beside Kain was a social worker. Kain hissed at the stranger. There's a special place in hell for bitches like you, and you're taking a lamb to the slaughterhouse. And when my mother kills me, I am personally coming to hunt you, and I won't give you or everyone you love a moment of peace. The social worker Meg said nothing to disturb her, and she was just there to make certain that Bella didn't wring Kain's scrawny little neck. Kain tried again with a guilt trip. "Whatever that demon told you, she's lying. My mother almost killed me, and how could you let that child abuser take me away?" "Kain, I am trying to drive. Can you stop talking so I can focus on my driving?" lied Bella, gritting her teeth. Bella stopped at a red light, and Kain saw a police car beside his mother's car. Kain removed his seatbelt and he started to yell, "Help! Help! I'm being kidnapped!" "Put your seatbelt on," said Meg, trying to put the seatbelt on the brat. The officer heard Kain calling for help, and the officer, instead of interfering, continued on his merry way. The light turned green, and Bella continued driving. And Meg tried to put the seatbelt on Kain, but the child started kicking her. And Kain moved past Meg as he tried to maneuver to the front seat of the car, and Bella, fearing that Kain was going to jump out the window of the moving vehicle, held her elbow up, and at that moment the car in front of Bella stopped abruptly, and to avoid the accident, Bella pressed down on the brakes. The sudden stop caused Kain to hit his head against the plastic of the seatbelt, and with his forehead bruised, Kain started to cry for real. "Oh, for the God's sake, Meg, I'm trying to drive. Put the seatbelt on the boy already," yelled Bella, finally dropping her mask. Alright, so that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.